as a talent pool?
A talent pool, yes, and with a clear vision to promote technology entrepreneurship and innovation.
Yeah.
But being in this area, the immediate advantage, the most obvious advantage, is the access to talent. But there were other advantages of being in a locality like this, which the Lagos Innovation Project now brought to the fore. But yes, talent was one of the key areas, and being on the mainland, it was accessible to both the CBD, which was on the island, or in YNaija.
Okay. So, but the schools, you mentioned the schools being part of the reason why you guys came together. Have the schools been participating? Because you get that the Nigerian schools are not really up to par.
Well, not formally in terms of agreements or partnerships, but the access to the talent, and the talent are a constant driver of this place. They constantly come to our events. We constantly have various initiatives in conjunction with the big telecoms companies and the big tech companies, the Googles, the Microsofts, to then upskill and begin to bring the student population and the student network into technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation as a whole.
Right. So, on the government, what was the role of the government exactly?
The government was very critical to the growth of this cluster.
Did they drag their foot at first, or?
No, it was pretty I won't say pretty easy, but they understood it. The office of the governor, which at the time had Mojiros as deputy chief of staff, she was crucial. We went to her, pitched it to her, she got it straight away, and then took it to ESCO. At the time, they already created an innovation advisory council, so it already showed that the government was really keen to boost innovation and entrepreneurship in Lagos. But this then became one of the key pillars of the council in terms of project to execute and things to begin to show that they were really serious about spurring innovation. So yeah, I would say they understood it once we took it to them, and they were very keen to support it.
So can you estimate the number of companies that are in Yaba at present?
As at the last count, over 60.
Over 60?
Yes, and if you think about the fact that when this all started, when we decided to start this, we were max 6 companies in Yaba.
Okay.
Tech. That's a major growth in the number of companies. Without any, promotions, anything big and loud as you find probably in other clients. It was very organic. The fact that there was infrastructure and the fact that there were other people here and access to talent then started bringing people into the.
Okay. So, is there the estimate on the number of revenue generated from Yaba Tech Cluster?
That's going to be tough. I'm not sure anybody has gone about doing, carrying out that kind of research. But if you think about the fact that over 60 companies have now moved into this area, each of them with probably minimum size staff, averagely 20, 30, you are talking about what, almost 5,000, 6,000 jobs.
Okay.
That in itself shows that there's a lot of growth and progress. Because they're all private companies, you really can't have access to their information and data. But if you also look at the amounts of monies that some of them have raised, again, it shows that they're attracting capital into this area.
So if you were to estimate, how much would you estimate that have gone through Yaba basically the last?
The last 3-4 years, I would say we'll go into the billions of naira, to be honest, yes.
So basically, Yaba can actually sustain the whole of Lagos?
Well, maybe not in its sense, because again, you understand with tech is not the be-all and end-all. Tech is a tool, so it's still going to support all the other types of businesses that already exist, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's commerce, whether it's whatever, fashion, whether it's print. All it's doing is enabling and making it more efficient, and probably even get to a wider audience. So in itself, I won't say Yaba can sustain the whole of Lagos, of course. I don't know what the tax implications of that are in terms of the government and what they've made, but clearly as a signal of the potential of technology as an ecosystem, I think Yaba has brought to the fore the kinds of opportunities that exist. The amount of foreign direct investment that's come in, the amount of foreign interest that's come into Yaba as a space has been tremendous over the last 2-3 years, and that's occasioned by the effort and the work that's gone into making this place conducive for technology businesses to be here. Paga is there, they've raised quite a ton of money, hotels has raised money, budget is there, who was only just recognized by Bill Gates yesterday in his speech at the Mandela Foundation event. So you can see that Printivo, Andela is here. They also raised money from Facebook. So you can tell, and they're all in this cluster, which means a lot of interest here. We've just set up a fund, the $5 million fund. Again, is based here. Of course, the target is the entire country, but it means that we're attracting capital into this locality. We want to narrow it to that, and that can only bode well for Lagos as a state and as a place to do business.
Yeah, so I actually have 2 questions for you now. I understand that CcHub is trying to become like an investor, trying to go into an investment role.
Okay.
And is there any ongoing effort to invest to replicate CcHub in other parts of Nigeria? And then the third one, sorry, do you think CcHub is the largest in Africa? Sorry, Yaba Tech Cluster is the largest in Africa.
Very interesting questions. In terms of CcHub being an investor, we've always invested from day one through our incubation program and an incubation program. Okay. We've invested over $700,000 in the last 5 years. What the growth capital by CcHub, which is the new impact investing company that was set up, is to then take that even further by investing at growth stages of companies. So it's a $5 million fund, which is the direct effect of all the investments we've done over the past 5 years and the reputation we've put together and the companies that we've supported, to then take that to the next level by investing in growth stage companies. So yes, we are an investment company and we've always invested from day one. Replicating CcHub across the country, it's a lofty idea, but what we always say is there needs to be access to talent and an ecosystem. We would not claim to have created this cluster or created technology ecosystem. Exactly. It's just that what we have done is we brought a lot of focus to it and brought a centralization and a home to it, and that's what brought it a lot more attention. But they always existed. They always did their businesses. What we brought was a consciousness to it. So in that regard, going into other cities will be clearly dependent on the state of those cities and their innovation clusters in those cities to then determine if something like this will thrive. If they don't exist, you go there and you end up just being a training center for, for technology tools and things like that, which doesn't mean it won't lead to innovation, but it will take a much longer time. The route for us, we've seen, is to then have like smaller clusters of innovation tied to the universities, and that way they can then begin to promote innovation. So that is for us in terms of the future how we tend to take it, and not necessarily like replicate it in all the other cities. And the final question about
CcHub is the largest in Africa. I'm sorry, Yaba Tech Cluster is the largest in Africa.
It's debatable. You would say South Africa probably has a more mature system, but in terms of an organic growth and birth of a cluster of innovation, I would say yes, Yaba would arguably be the biggest in Africa.
Yeah, so you see that's South Africa or Nigeria?
Yes, I would say yes. I would say that.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to draw into a bit of controversy because I asked Bankole about this and he was like, nah, he's not going to talk on it.
Okay.
What actually is the name of this Yaba cluster? Some people are calling it Yaba Silicon, different names, So is there any name?
There's no formal, I mean, there's been Yaba Right, there's been Yaba Pond Valley. For me, do they do justice to it? Maybe not. Do I like the name Pond Valley? No, because it's very, yeah, apart from the fact that it's a rip-off, it doesn't speak to originality. So I won't put a stamp on approval on that. Is there a formal name? No. Is there a need for a formal name? Yes. How would that happen? I don't know. It probably just be an organic thing where the ecosystem and the cluster itself evolves a name. But yes, there's an importance with having a name because that in many ways speaks for it and then goes as far as it can go.
Gives an identity.
Gives an identity, exactly. But what's the name right now?
On the other hand, you think about the one in Kenya, the one in South Africa, all of them have silicon to their names. So you begin to wonder whether Nigeria wouldn't want to go that unimaginative part.
I would rather not. Preferably, personally, I wouldn't want us to go that same route.
So what exactly what would CcHub call Yaba cluster? On paper, what name do you give it?
Would like to call it an innovation headquarters. What that would mean in terms of localizing it, I don't know.
Doesn't sound boring when you say.
I guess, yes, which is why probably a collaborative approach is what will evolve a name, where we throw it open and people bring ideas and then we then go ahead and name it, which kind of happened when Yaba Right came about, because we had people, just throw up names and then people started voting. But at the end of the day, I think as a cluster, we need to identify it and put a stamp and a tag to it, and that's up to everyone to do. I wouldn't want to necessarily say CcHub has to be the one to do that.
Is there what are the future prospects? Any plans?
Of this cluster? Oh, yeah. Definitely. Because of the gains that we've seen, then it's important to continue to make that bigger. And to make it bigger, there are clear strategies. One, you have to focus on talent. You need to continue to improve talent and give them a reason to see this as a career path. And that involves initiatives around training them, spurring innovation in their various enclaves, such that they can begin to test things out. Experimentation is key to driving an innovation cluster. So that's one pillar on which it would be. Secondly, would be how do you then create businesses? It's not just enough to have an innovative idea. How do you then turn that into a business? So it requires business support services. It requires ancillary type things. It requires a mentoring network that can really begin to encourage the younger generation to live out their dreams and build their passions. So that's also really important. Thirdly, you require funding at the different levels. Who are the players in that space, and at what levels are they available to those who have ideas, so that they can begin to invest, fund, and see those ideas come to life. And of course, finally, the role of government is critical. How does the government spur innovation? How do you provide more access? How do you ensure that people can, with their capital, go and buy property? How do you ensure that they can go and invest in spaces where people can then begin to grow out of? Is there a space for incubation? Definitely. Is there a space for many players? Of course. Because, ideas are at various levels, and you would expect that people will have different risk appetites in supporting ideas. So for me, those things, it can only get better. We need internet. We need really good internet. We need a community cloud, Wi-Fi type cloud that can encourage people to just sit down in the park and do things. We need infrastructure to be repurposed. We have libraries in this environment. How do we repurpose them to then serve as clusters of innovation, to serve as houses where people can get their ideas off the ground because the facilities exist? Is there space for hardware? Definitely. How do we encourage kids in school by training them and getting them to be technology savvy? How do we improve the curriculum in schools such that kids are exposed to technology at an early age? And it doesn't matter what kind of school, public, private, it doesn't matter, because once you expose kids, then they can dream, think, and create their own futures. Right now, we're still more consumers of tech. We need to start going towards being creators of tech. And that's going to happen when we get the younger generation really keyed into the whys and not just the what. If they understand the whys and the hows, then they can build their own. So for me, this is only the first step. There's so many steps that need to then happen that will then make Yaba as a cluster become a true cluster of innovation. But it has started. The journey has started. We're excited about how well it has gone. And as long as the leadership is there, which it is right now from CcHub, then we expect that a lot more players will come to the fore and take different aspects of it, and eventually we'll grow it all up.
Okay, so there's this question of space.
Yes.
Yaba is not like it's a recent something. Okay. Look at somewhere like Silicon Valley in America, and I think it's a kind of a recent development. There is more space to it. People started buying up property there recently. So you look at Yaba is more compacted. And then you wouldn't have a company developing campuses like the way you have at Google, Facebook, Microsoft. You don't have such large campuses, such large spaces. And then developing of an environment like a park. You actually talk about a park now. How can people do that? There's no way, there's no more space.
Trust me, there is. There's a lot of space. You can build campuses. So because Yaba is very ancient, there's the belief that it's all built up. But that's not true. If you go to a rooftop and you look into the landscape, you will see a lot of regeneration happening. The railway quarters is there. It's a large expanse of land that is not really doing anything. There's opportunities there. Close to Andela, there's a former college that used to be there, massive expanse of land that is not being used right now. those are places that can immediately be turned into those kinds of initiatives. If you go even further in, there are spaces. The question is, do we have the right framework, legal and operationally, for people to bring money in, take, acquire those things, and then repurpose them to what they want to use them for? That is what, from a government standpoint and from a regulatory standpoint, needs to be answered. Of course, we know that land is held by the government, and all you own is a tenancy on it, or a leasehold. So things like that need to then evolve so that people can genuinely take a position, come and invest, knowing that in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, they reap the benefits of that. So there is space, quite honestly, a lot of space. It's how well do we then use it? Yaba is ripe for business parks. Yaba is ripe for really good quality coffee shops where people can then go and interact and meet people. Those kinds of things will happen, but they have to be organic for it to be sustainable.
It's not something you just do artificially.
You just don't do it artificially. You just don't go build cities. For me, that would always be starved, and I think we've seen that somewhat with Tinapa. Eventually, it may bloom and become big, but when it's forced, you kind of find people not having a reason to want to be a part of it. But when it's very organic, like Yaba has been, then it becomes a pull more than a push. When it's a pull, then people come for various reasons and they find their space in here, which is what we've seen even with Yaba as a cluster.
So there's something that I still do not understand. I actually understand it, but it actually sounds too good to be true.
Okay.
Nigerian universities are not that good. Let's be honest. So I want to understand exactly how. Is there like any collaboration, any agreement like with the university facilities within Yaba? Is there any way people collaborate? Is there any exchange of information, any exchange of data, idea, stuff like that?
So quite honestly, the short answer to that is no.
Okay.
Because when you look at an innovation ecosystem, there are various components to it, and they all have to kind of get in play for things to happen. The last 5 years has been really about, really understanding the space and setting some foundations. For me, the next step is then how do you get interesting collaborations going on with the universities? Ideally, the university is the best environment for innovation to thrive, because you've got everything in there. You've got the students, you've got the researchers, you've got the academics, you've got, for want of a better word, a close-knit system where people can try things, fail at things, and not be worried about that. And because it's an academic environment, you expect that a lot of the innovations should be coming from them. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But of recent, we started seeing, overtures towards universities, and we started getting the right kind of feel, even from the universities, as to their position and their availability to be partners to boost innovation ecosystems. The big technology companies have started it, the Microsofts, the Googles, and co. They've gone in, they've done training, they've whetted the students' appetite, and so students are more proactive now towards problem solving. Now, the next step is how do you then form partnerships with the university establishment?
So essentially, you've kind of formed like an unwritten agreement with the students.
Yes.
Not with the school.
Yes, the school is aware. I'm not sure about any formal sign-up agreements, but the school is aware, because to reach the students, you have to go through the school. So the school is aware at various levels. Whether it's top priority for them, I can't answer that question. But we started seeing a lot more support and things evolve from the school environment. For us, for example, for the last 4 years, we've run a program we call Code Camp. And so it's 1 month every year where we bring students and young graduates into a residential program to train on programming, on user experience, on user interface. Now, a good deal of those participants have come from the universities. And that's because for them, there's that appetite to want to learn. Now, that can go to the next level by then saying, Computer Science Department of University of Lagos, how do we sign a partnership with the CcHub, with Paga, with Conga, with Andela, to then say there will be a funnel for transmitting talent into the pool. We're also doing this project now called Talent Gap. We're trying to understand the gap between what is being taught in the schools and what the market requires in terms of technology, and that becomes a very strong point or a baseline to then have interactions with the universities, because once you show what is being done in the university ecosystem and show what the marketplace requires in terms of talent, skills, knowledge, then you can begin to have important conversations about how to bridge that gap and ensure that the students in school are relevant to what the market requires. And only until we get to that position, then we'll be able to scale technology at the level we need to. So that we're hopeful that that project, at its completion, will then bring both parties together to say, hey, these are the gaps. How do we then begin to bridge the gaps?
So like in 20 years, we'll like, less than 20 years is too far.
Yes, too far. Yeah.
In 5 years, Yaba will be a whole other thing.
I believe so. I believe so. I believe so.
Do you know sometimes, or you know the opinion that this is the last question? I know the opinion that Lagos is too small for all this. Considering that Lagos is like the center of every commerce, everything you can think of in Nigeria. Do you not think that if you had if this kind of thing has sprung up in somewhere like Ife or Enugu, Ogun State, places like this, that the growth would have been much welcome, although slower, but would have had more space, because Lagos is kind of like compacted. You have entertainment, fashion, music, everything.
So there's truth to that. But at the end of the day, where is all this going to? Is the ability to build really big, successful businesses that are creating jobs and are making money. So there will always be a natural affinity and a pull to Lagos because it's the commercial capital of this country. This is where all the commerce, most of the commerce happens.
Let me point out something to you, because if you look at somewhere like America, their center of commerce is in New York, and their technology hub is in California, even though there are one or two bits of technology companies in New York. But you understand that everything is focused in California. So don't you think the thing should have been spread out?
Possibly. But if you look at the history of California and the setup there, it was government money. It was government funded. So it's not something where a private individual will decide, I want to go do this, because it's a very grandiose idea. And it requires that kind of stable long-term planning and money to be able to catalyze. If that's not there, the private sector guy is looking for profit as quickly as he can. It's not going to wait 30, 40 years to see something blossom to then take a profit. So for me, that's where the role of the government is. There's no reason why there are no other clusters or at the scale at which you have here. This is very private sector driven. That's why you've seen it really boom. What we then require is the government to then take positions in certain other places and say, how do we create these clusters, but not from a 5-year plan, from a 30, 40-year plan. Because until the environment itself is conducive, you won't find private capital going into it, because private capital is looking for profit as quickly as it can and go back to your shareholders. So the likes of Tinapa and Co will take a lot longer, but requires government funding and a lot of research to begin to catalyze the place. So until that happens...
So essentially you're saying that the Yaba tech cluster is one of the few tech clusters that in the world that grew organically.
Yes.
Even compared to Silicon Valley.
I believe so, yes. I believe so. I believe so. Because the semiconductor market in the Valley or in California at the time was what drove that space. There was already money to be made. So again, it kind of grew. And then the government, of course, funding research, the Stanfords and Co, then also helped it to happen. Universities were always out of town at the time. That's why you have Ife. Ife is a very vibrant community for technology and for every other thing, because they don't have access to Lagos as quickly as some other places, and so the environment helps you to think and to create, and that's what it requires. So other environments can grow, but here it's grown because all the simple elements are already in place. People are already making money. It's why I say about Lagos. The technology cluster existed, they were making money, tons of it for certain types of people, but it then required a focus and an effort to then bring others to the table. And that's why this has been really successful in Yaba. And for that to happen in other places, that has to happen, in my view.
Yeah, so I just remembered something now.
Yes.
The Ooni of Ife.
Yes.
He signed, I think, 1.2 billion.
4 billion.
Yeah. Do you think it will come to fruition, or will it be like this, or do you think it's just one of those things? Or is it like a competitor? You said something that private sector is always looking for the quickest way to profit. So basically, will it be a competitor, to CcHub and to the Yaba tech cluster, and will it ever mature to this extent?
I don't see it as competition,
Okay.
because we need more of those kinds of clusters.
Okay.
As long as there's talent there and the right environment exists, then you want more of those kinds of things happening. It takes pressure off Lagos, because you then don't necessarily have to be here to then get your business done. So I'm all for that. There needs to be a very long-term position to it for it to work out. If it already has a good reputation, of course, in terms of, I'm speaking strictly from a technology standpoint now. So it means that this kind of initiative, which will involve a lot of land and a lot of building, would, in the long term, with the right reasons, then yield fruition. If it's a short-term play, then it won't work. That's my own, personal take. As long as there's a long-term vision to it, and I'm talking 20 years at the minimum, then there's a chance it would work. And as long as there's stability in the environment, then of course it will.
So this is like final question.
Yes.
Were you ever surprised at the rate at which everything took off?
Yes.
Did you ever imagine it to be this fast?
To be honest, no. We thought it was going to be slower. But that's the beauty of innovation. Once you bring the right people together and the right resources, then serendipity happens, and you really can't predict how fast serendipity will go. So in as much as, yes, as if you say, look at the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of tremendous growth, which we didn't expect to come this quickly. But what that also brings is, it brings the stark realities of the shortcomings, which then need to be plugged if we're going to really be here 15, 20 years from now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Do you have card so I could contact you if I have any